This has got to be made a part of the public record. But you do ask the question, and I think it's an important one. Was it all for nothing that we now find ourselves here? I will reserve my comments on the slowness, I'll put it that way, of this Justice Department in the very beginning, on the heels of January 2021. To really focus the country's attention on the legal consequences of Donald Trump's actions that January 6th. But was it all for nothing? Even if the documents are released?
You know, I too was critical of the Justice Department's slow start, and for the first year and a half, I kept sort of looking at my watch, wondering when they were going to get in gear and talking about it on podcasts. I think we'll debate through the lens of history whether or not they were slow or whether they were working behind the scenes. But, Michael, I think I finally have a question, or actually a better answer to the question that I posed about whether it was all for nothing. And my answer is that it was absolutely essential that Jack Smith engage in these prosecutions, because in an era where we now have questions about the stability of the rule of law, he stood for the rule of law. He did something that people questioned whether it could even be done, indicting a former president. He did it based on the evidence without any indication of politics, and he proceeded in court in a professional way that upheld the best traditions of the Justice Department. Now, look, there's no doubt that it was too slow, likely not because of Smith's fault. In Florida, he faced Judge Aileen Cannon, a judge who was confirmed to the federal bench after Donald Trump lost in 2020 and did nothing to move her case along. You know, that case, the classified documents case, was what prosecutors call a straight line case. The evidence was straightforward. It was simple. It could have been to trial 9 months, 10 months after being indicted. She kept that from happening and ultimately dismissed it on a basis that I don't believe is legally supported. The January 6th case is a little bit more complicated. And again, the Supreme Court intervened. And that case and the issue of whether or not the court has been captured by Donald Trump is something I know we'll be discussing intensively over the next months and years. But even in that situation, the American people understand the contours of those cases and of what Donald Trump did with far more detail and significance than we would have ever understood without those prosecutions. Now the question is whether Smith will leave behind a permanent physical record of all of his evidence, cases that will never be tried in court, but that will continue to have historical significance.
Why wouldn't he leave behind a record? Why wouldn't he make a report? Because it's the act of prosecution and it didn't actually get finished. Like, what would be the reason that we would not see something?
Yeah, I think the question, and maybe I've not stated it precisely, is whether he'll leave a public record or not. Because under records retention policies in the Justice Department, those materials must all be maintained in storage for a period of years. You know, the fate of those materials under a Donald Trump administration is, I think, something that has many people concerned. The issue with making them public is twofold. Typically, DOJ does not release a report, does not talk about a case once it's dismissed. But this is a little bit different. We've got a special counsel here. There are reporting obligations. We will, I think, see some form of public report that will be released. The question is, how much detail will we get? And my eyes are particularly on the classified documents case, where Smith had said in a pleading in October that he would be discussing in court why Donald Trump held on to those classified documents and refused to turn them back over to the government. I don't think we've ever had that question answered before. My hope is that Smith will give us more information than we have right now.
I want to take a listen because there's sort of something baked into Simone's answer about sort of the potential fear of retribution on the part of Jack Smith. An exchange on Newsmax. This is from November 7th between Mike Davis, a Republican lawyer, and about Jack Smith. Take a listen.
Where does Jack Smith go after all of this?
He should go to prison for engaging in a criminal conspiracy against President Trump.
So, just Vince, can you give us a sense of, if you're Jack Smith, sort of what you're already putting in place to protect yourself?
So first, I mean, I'll say the obvious.
Please.
That's utterly false, utterly unacceptable. A prosecutor who proceeds through a grand jury and into a court in front of an independent federal judge is not part of a conspiracy. The evidence is the evidence. The facts are the facts. We've seen many of them in public. Whether or not the Supreme Court decides that Donald Trump has presidential immunity is an entirely different matter from whether there was a basis for this indictment or for proceeding, and there clearly was. So the idea that Jack Smith has to take protective steps tells us just how much danger our democracy is in. Look, Smith, I think, is in a dangerous position, I'm sure, and I hope he's taking steps to protect himself and his family. But the reality is that the protection he deserves is protection from the American people, from elected members of Congress of both parties who should absolutely insist that there be no retribution taken against him for lawful conduct, and from officials, Trump officials in the Justice Department, the folks that we were talking about earlier, who must absolutely adhere to law and Constitution and reject any idea that revenge prosecutions are appropriate ever, because they are not.